pace.
Looking to finish the game. Bobby Hill runs him down.
What?
Brilliant from Bobby. Bobby Dazzler brings him down.
This is
Oh, he's made it. He's made it trip.
No!
Big call.
He said he legged him.
No!
Wow, he's that massive.
That is
Let's have a
extraordinary.
look at the replay.
The non-officiating umpire said the tackle drifted down and it's a trip. Bobby Hill cannot believe it.
It's a trip. It's going to be a Geelong free kick. A trip. The MCG erupts.
And kills the game.
Manor runs through the middle of the MCG. What a tackle! Down from Bobby Hill. Bobby
They've got a trip.
They've called it a trip. They say Bobby Hill legged him. Two decisions against Collingwood.
How's that going to go down?
Good luck getting out of here tonight.
What? No! The Maccas quad called Bobby Hill 2 weeks running. Simmo and Horse with us.
Special comments here, Jared.
John Longmire, welcome.
G'day, guys.
Adam Simpson, hello.
Evening, boys.
Righto, we want to learn about the art of the close finish, the skill of winning the close ones, Simmo.
Yeah, well, we don't have Fly available, so I suppose we have to take over. And what he's done the last 2 or 3 years and how he's managed, probably more coming from behind than holding a lead, has been remarkable. And we saw it again on the weekend, although they didn't get over the line this time. They did a lot of things right in those last 2.5 minutes, and it got Horse and I talking about how he managed situations like this at the end of a game. And it's the 2-minute drills you do in pre-season, and not only how you hang on to a lead, but how you win a game, and it can change in a matter of seconds. So training the 2-minute drills where end of training pre-season, and the players love it, by the way, because it's competitive. It's your 10 points up and your 10 points down. What are you going to do about it? And, there's the education you do in the classroom, but also how the players execute and what the leaders do. And it's a pretty critical part of the game. I don't think Collingwood win a flag without having a real understanding and game awareness. And Horse, you've obviously dealt with it your way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical. I mean, as you stated, it's very important. I mean, and it's also important personnel. I mean, on the weekend, for instance, Geelong had Stewart out and who's normally very good in these situations. And also Blitzovs was in the ruck because Stanley was out injured early in the game. So you can practice as much as you like, and you need to have 3, 4, 5 different options that you can turn to because of those scenarios that may unfold. So it's quite complex, and sometimes you can get it right, and a lot of times you don't get it right. But we thought we'd just take it through tonight and just give you a bit of an insight into what we did rather than, or what we talked about generally. It doesn't mean that everyone does it. It doesn't mean that both teams in this situation do what we do. But we had a chat about it, and we'd like to show a little bit of vision to explain it.
All right, make us smarter. Take it away.
Okay, well, we'll get across to the vision. I mean, the first thing is an overall philosophy that both teams are after in this scenario. Clearly, Geelong are about slow and soaking the ball, soaking the time up, and Collingwood are about speed. You can just see Collingwood bring the ball back, bring the forwards back, create space, and they obviously allow their great players like Dacos, for instance, here to have space to work in. He almost gets the ball. He's followed on the way through, which was by Holmes. This kick doesn't quite go to plan. We won't talk about the chase down. There's been plenty of talk about that already. But you can just see now Geelong get a free kick. And as we know, at this particular point in time, there's only a couple of minutes to go. The aim of Geelong right now is to make sure that the ball's not in motion. It's in slow play. They need to soak the time up. You can see Close here talking about maybe going backwards, using the opportunity to go, an uncontested mark scenario. They go wide. This is fine, but Geelong don't need to play on here. Once they play on, they can't use the ball and go back and soak the time up. The really only option from here is to go long, which is also fine. Blitzovs does a great job in the attempted spoil because they're after a stoppage at this point in time to set up and go slow. Collingwood, as we see, want to keep the ball in motion. They want to keep things moving at all particular times. Geelong get another opportunity here. Very hard to do this, hit an uncontested mark when this amount of pressure's on. So they blast the ball a little bit deeper. Collingwood once again get an extra number back and get the ball back in motion. Jeremy Cameron comes in as a Geelong player here, and his whole aim in this situation should be to slow it up rather than what he'd normally do, which is try and get an intercept. Collingwood get the ball in motion, keep the speed going, and now I'll hand it over to Simmo.
Yeah, if you just pause it there, Geelong have got another free kick. So they've got an opportunity to go control again. But I think Geelong might have missed 2 or 3 opportunities there to actually control the game. They could have gone backwards. They could have found a bit more composure. Cameron could have manned the mark better. But now they've got another chance. So while all that happened, Holmes has gone behind the play and freed up O'Sullivan. So now they've got an extra behind the play. So this is what you sort of do. There's 2.5 minutes to go. There's probably a minute to go now. Unfortunately for Geelong, the spare is not a part of offense. So you see Bose turn around in a second and go, geez, maybe I could actually kick it to him, and he doesn't. So if you just pause it there. So now it's about, just pause it there if you can, boys. Now it's about, okay, let's get it as long as we can. Can we get a stoppage like Horse spoke about? But what happens behind the ball, we spoke about this last week. This is the moment. This is the moment to think about defence when you can't impact in offence. And they've got O'Sullivan deep to protect everything else. And this is pretty common, happens probably in local footy as well. If you let this play out now, you can sort of see what happens. The ball comes straight back. And it's pretty good. There's a few leverage players there to the right, but it comes back directly where the ball came from. So sort of no excuses for Geelong not to be accountable here. But unfortunately, from this moment on, it's another surge kick. And if you pause it there, and when you had Atkins on Schultz for whatever reason, and you had Bose on Elliott, and they both transitioned to the corridor thinking that's the most dangerous spot, and you let it play. It's not the ideal situation. They should be trying to locate an opponent. Instead, they all drift to the corridor. You've got Schultz and Elliott now free, and this is a bit of a lapse in concentration, and I'm sure they would have reviewed that, unless it's just the way Geelong do things. So we're not trying to predict what the coaches want, but ideally those guys are covered off. And even still, you've got, because Stewart's not playing, you've sort of got some young defenders. You know, you got Holmes down there, like we spoke about. You've got O'Connor, you've got O'Sullivan, and you've got Blitzavs all protecting at the top of the square, and they just don't get it done. So your goal line review would be pretty, from a defensive point of view, they'd review that, and they concede a goal. So a few things Collingwood have done right, but a lot of things Collingwood would reflect on. Now's the important part. So from a coaching point of view, there's a goal kicked, and we can't use runners in the last 3 minutes of the play. It has to be when a goal's kicked, and you'll see the 2 runners come on the ground. And I'll talk about Collingwood. So they set up the ground pretty well the last centre bounce. So you're probably going into the midfield group there talking about, let's just do what we did before, but make sure we equalise the game as quick as we can, because no doubt Geelong are trying to get that spare as well. So, you know, if the wingers from Geelong happen to go defensive, let's go with them. What are Geelong talking about, Horse?
Yeah, I think if we just keep the pause there, I think the runner at the very start went to Jeremy Cameron on the wing. Jeremy Cameron and Close, who was originally on the wing, swap positions. So the idea, obviously, is for Jeremy Cameron to go behind the ball and Close to then come from half forward back to the wing, which gives Jeremy Cameron as the 7th player. What obviously Collingwood want to do in that situation is even that player up. So rather than Jeremy being spare, he's actually manned up by Crisp in the end, who has the shot. And as you can see here, Collingwood, you know, very well done here. They bring the ball, bring their forwards back to create space at centre half forward there. Dacos, as we know, sits back, creates a bit of space. And they do this very well, both teams. But as we can see it progress, Dacos does allow for that extra space. It doesn't matter whether you go down by 2 goals here, because you might as well have a crack at winning it. And now Jeremy Cameron, rather than being the spare, reading the ball in flight, which he loves to do, is now manned up by Crisp. And so you can just see as the ball gets kicked in, he's looking around, trying to read the cues for a longer ball. You know, he gets a bit unlucky here. There's no question about that. The ball drops short and it drops into Crisp's hands. And you can just see the elation of the Collingwood players to give themselves an opportunity to win it.
Fantastic. That's really good. There's a lot of stuff there that I didn't see. At what time? So you've taken that from 2 minutes. So what time would you think you pull the trigger and go back into that really save the game mode? Is there like, is 2 minutes about right? Can you do it longer than that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll start off, Simmo. I mean, from our point of view, there are different times and momentum shifts during the game. And if you feel it with about 8 or 9 minutes to go, maybe that's a time then just to take the sting out of the game. You can just slow things down a little bit, but it's very hard to defend for that amount of time. If you're talking about getting an extra back, and really chewing up the time as much as you can. We didn't do it usually until about 3 minutes was left, and even then it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, we had a call called fourth gear, and it was pretty much control. And can you expose the opposition if they don't man you up? One thing Collingwood didn't do, and I haven't seen a lot of Collingwood's going behind goals. Traditionally, if you put a +1 behind the play, the opposition will equalise the team that's down. They don't want to give you a spare, so you go into control. They didn't do that. They let Geelong have a spare, and I think it was so they could slingshot their way on the off chance they get the ball back. So we would call fourth gear with 6 or 7 minutes to go, and then if it needed an extra behind the play. It has changed a bit, though, boys, since the 6-6-6 rule came in. They used to be able to put 2 or 3 players behind the play, and it was really beneficial. Now you've got to wait till after a centre bounce. And that's where the damage is done, as we saw with the vision on the weekend. It's hard to start players behind the play. And all Collingwood did on this particular occasion, they equalised the centre bounce play, which worked well for them. So I don't think we're trying to guess what Fly and Chris are doing, because we've got no idea. It's just more what we're doing. That's what we're looking at tonight.
Right, just a quick minute. So should he have gone back to O'Sullivan? I think it was. You said there was a spare behind the footy there. They had 10 points. He was way back, and Horse, you said he looked at him and thought maybe I will and maybe I won't. Do you go back that far when you've got an extra in your back half?
I think you've got to be mindful of how much ground you give up, Gaz. I mean, there might have been an opportunity before that to go back on the 45 and give up only 15 metres. I'd be very reluctant to go back 30 or 40 metres. You give up too much ground, and particularly if there's still a minute and a half to play. I think how it ended up, once that Geelong player on the wing decided to play on, I mean, Blitzup's had the right idea. He was trying to get the ball out. You need both ground position at that point in time if you can't get the uncontested mark, and then you need a stoppage to set up behind the ball with your extra.
We could have done 20 more minutes on this. I've got 6 more questions, but maybe we'll take that offline. Simmo Horse, terrific. Thank you very much for doing that for us.